From Simon & Schuster Audio, Douglas Adams' Starship Titanic by Terry Jones and Douglas Adams. Read by Terry Jones.
Where is Leovinus? Demanded the Gat of Blerontis, chief quantity surveyor of the entire northeastern gas district of the planet of Blerontin. No, I do not want another bloody fish paste sandwich. He did not exactly use the word bloody, because it did not exist in the Blerontin language. The word he used could be more literally translated as similar in size to the left earlobe, but the meaning was much closer to bloody. Nor did he actually use the phrase fish paste, since fish do not exist on Blerontin in the form in which we would understand them to be fish. But when one is translating from a language used by a civilization of which we know nothing, located as far away as the center of the galaxy, one has to be approximate. Similarly, the Gat of Blerontis was not exactly a quantity surveyor, and certainly the term Northeastern Gas District gives no idea at all about the magnificence and grandeur of his position. Look, perhaps I'd better start again. Where is Leovinus? Demanded the Gat of Blerontis, the most important and significant statesman on the entire planet of Blerontin. The launch cannot proceed without him. Several minor officials were dispatched to search for the great man. Meanwhile, the vast crowd simmered with mounting impatience in front of the Grand Assembly Dock, where the new starship stood, veiled in its attractive pink silk sheeting. Not one member of the crowd had glimpsed even so much as a nut or a bolt of the ship, but already its fame had swept the galaxy from spiral arm to spiral arm. Back on the launch podium, the great Leovinus had still not been sighted. A minor official was explaining yet again to the Gat of Blerontis why the fish paste sandwiches were essential.
Normally, your stupendous and most lofty magnificence, you would be quite right in supposing that the mere launch of a starship would not be marked by such distinguished observances. But as you are aware, this starship is different. This starship is the greatest, most gorgeous, most technologically advanced starship ever built. This is the ultimate starship, the greatest cybernautic achievement of this or any other age, and it is utterly indestructible. The Intergalactic Council, therefore, thought it suitable to declare it a fish paste sandwich event.
The Blerontins insist on serving so-called fish paste sandwiches during festivals and important book launches, despite the fact that all Blerontins find them disgusting. It is a tradition that dates back to a time when Blerontin was an impoverished planet, living on the edge of starvation. Having run out of every other kind of food, the Blerontin team were reluctantly forced to offer up fish paste sandwiches as their entry for the Centennial Intergalactic Canapés Championship. For some unaccountable reason, the fish paste appealed to the jaded palates of the judges, clinched the championship for Blerontin, and paved the way for Blerontinian domination of the entire galactic centre for eons to come. The Gat's heart sank. His last line of defence shrivelled before his eyes, and he knew he was condemned to eat at least one fish paste canopy before the launch was over. The taste, he knew, would endure for months, and a Blerontin month was equivalent to several lifetimes if you happened to come from Earth, which, of course, nobody there did. In fact, nobody in that entire throng of some 50 million Blerontinians who had turned up to see the launch of the greatest starship in the history of the universe had ever even heard of Earth. And if you'd asked them, they wouldn't have been able to understand you, because translation blisters were not allowed to be worn on a fish paste event. It was another of those stupid little traditions that made the Gat furious. And still Leovinus did not appear. "Everyone here is holding their breath and keeping their fingers crossed," whispered the head reporter of the Blerontin News-Gathering Bureau into his invisible microphone. "No one has yet even caught so much as a glimpse of the fabulous starship, but everyone is certain that it will not only be the most technologically advanced, but also the most beautiful starship ever to have been created. It is, after all, the brainchild of Leovinus, to whose architectural genius we owe the great North-South Bridge that now links our two polar caps, to whose musical inspiration we owe the Blerontin national anthem, Our Canapés Triumph Daily, and to whose unsurpassable mastery of ballistics and biomass energetics we owe our third sun that now shines above us with its own famous on-off switch. But there's news just coming in that... What's that? Ladies and gentlemen and things, it appears that the great Leovinus has gone missing. Nobody has seen him all day. Surely they can't start the launch without him, but the crowd are beginning to demand some action and... what's that? A sour note had swept through the crowd as a band of short individuals, dressed in ragged overalls and flat caps, suddenly forced their way into the spectators' area. They were shouting in a language no one could understand because of the ban on translator blisters, and they were brandishing indecipherable placards. It looks as if the Yasigan delegation has managed to gain entry. An edge of alarm had entered the head reporter's voice. This was mainly because he had his entire commentary written down in advance, as he always did. The thought that an unforeseen turn of events might now force him to look at what was actually going on, and then improvise, was a nightmare that had dogged his sleep for all the years that he had been in the reporting business. Said the head reporter. He felt his head going light. He fought for breath as he felt his bowels starting to move. No, what can I say? He was praying that the words would come to him. In his recurring nightmare, the one that he always had after eating Snork chitterlings, he was in this very situation. Something unforeseen had occurred. His script was whisked away by some unseen hand, and the words never came. It has to be explained in defense of the head reporter that unforeseen events seldom occurred during public events on Blerontin, owing to the fact that the authorities exerted a pretty tight control over these things. "It's coming just out who?" exclaimed the head reporter. At that moment, an unseen hand whisked away his script, and the head reporter felt a warm sensation all over his lower abdomen. "I've done it! I mean, it's definitely Yasigans! I can see them now!" That was practically 2 whole sentences. He could do it. "They've purpley pinch burbs! Oh, damn!" It was one thing not to be able to think of anything, but how could he possibly come out with utter nonsense? That hadn't been in his nightmare. It was worse. The truth is that this personal disaster for the head reporter was just one in a string of disasters that had dogged the building of the starship. There had been rumours of corners cut. The Cybernet pigeon curses had been below spec. The great engine had been mislaid. Leovinus himself had quarrelled with the chairman of Starstruct, Inc. There had been arguments between Leovinus and his manager, Babostigan. There had been quarrels between Babostigan and Leovinus's accountant, Scraliontis. There had been arguments between Scraliontis and Leovinus, and so on and so on. The fact of the matter was that the construction of the starship had brought financial ruin on almost everybody involved, including one entire planet. Yasica had been, hitherto, a flourishing resort of industrious folk, with the most efficient and dependable construction industry in the central galaxy. Yasicans had enjoyed centuries of quiet prosperity and a high reputation. They never overcharged, they always delivered on time, they never cut corners. They were a race of proud craftsmen who had nothing to do with intergalactic canapés competitions, and thus were able to devote their wealth to the well-being of their own people. That was, until they undertook the construction of Leovinus's masterpiece, crowning achievement of his career, the starship that even now stands hidden from sight in its launching bay, awaiting the unveiling ceremony. "Give us back our happy lifestyle!" shout the Yasican demonstrators unintelligibly to the